Hey everyone, thanks for spending some part of your Saturday with us. I also get lots of questions these days about hearing technology. What's new out in the hearing aid industry? What's different from where we were 5, 10 years ago? And everybody's been seeing how the world's changing at such a rapid pace with technology, with things like artificial intelligence. And so a lot of those changes have also come into the hearing aid space as well. So I wanted to talk about hearing technology and talk about where we have come, how far we've come really, where we were with hearing technology back then and where we are today. And hopefully this is going to give us an overview of what to expect. And so I've got here a picture of the ear horn. And over here, a modern hearing aid microprocessor. Hearing aids haven't been around for a very long time. It wasn't until around the 1800s that ear trumpets became commercially available. Ear trumpets actually work quite well, and we all actually have our own biological ear trumpet. This is called the pinna. That is basically what an ear trumpet does. It's a funnel. It's there to capture what's happening around you and focus that sound into your eardrum. And really, an ear trumpet is the same thing. It's a horn that acts like a giant funnel that captures the sound and just focuses it into your eardrum. It actually works quite well. Not very popular, though, as you can see. Nobody really wanted to walk around like this. Hearing loss already is a stigmatizing condition for a lot of people. So you can imagine if you're whipping one of these out at the dinner table, people would start to look at you differently. And so that's all we had at that time. And so we make do with what we have. It wasn't until the 1930s where we had more of the Industrial Revolution kick in. Think about the world wars that had happened and the different industries that came out of it. But miniaturization of electronics was what led to the first body-worn hearing aid. Prior to that, we had hearing aids that would come in a suitcase that would have like some sort of like receiver that you would hold in your hand, and so it was just a very clunky setup. And so for something to be miniaturized and to be worn under your underwear was a big thing. Still, not a lot of adoption, expensive and clunky and bulky, but it was the first time that people just carried around their hearing instruments on their body. And then in the 1950s, we had a huge shift, which is that hearing instruments were now worn on the ear. And we're moving away from something that's underneath our clothing to something that's just on the ear. And so the sort of modern shape of the hearing aid is what first came about here. And hearing instruments, again, becoming more widely available, more individuals being able to wear these sorts of devices and treat their hearing loss. And then a big shift in the 90s, which is that hearing instruments became programmable. This was a huge, huge shift. When I mean programmable, what I mean is that you can actually plug the hearing aid into a computer to adjust it. Prior to this point, if we were fitting a hearing instrument on, there was very little adjustment we would do. There was like a little knob that you could turn with a screwdriver and it would make things louder or softer. You put it on a patient, you ask them, how does that sound? Oh, wow, it sounds really loud and doesn't sound good. Can you hear me though? I guess I can. Okay, we're done. There was not much personalization of the whole process. And so that really changed when we introduced the computer, because now you can program the sound of the hearing aid to start matching more closely to the person's prescription and to what their hearing actually looked like. And then fast forward to the present age, this is sort of what we're looking at now, which is things that are a 10th or a 20th of the size, that have tiny, tiny chips in them. They're fully programmable. And so certainly the technology and the progression has gone exponential over the last 10 to 20 years, as has computers and everything else that we're seeing around us. I want to break it down to 4 key areas where we see the most consistent improvement across the different manufacturers and the different technologies that are out in the industry. Probably the biggest thing is that the vast majority of hearing instruments that are being fit today are fully rechargeable, okay? And this is not a small thing. Anybody who's used hearing instruments for a long time can talk about the thousands of batteries that they've changed, over the course of using their hearing instruments. Hearing instruments, when we used to have disposable batteries, would last for maybe 3 days, 4 days, and you'd have to change them. People would forget to change them all the time. And so people would oftentimes be walking around, they would have no idea that their hearing aid was low on battery or sometimes not even working at all. And so moving into something that's rechargeable and even making that available for some of the smallest hearing instruments has been such a large advancement. And not only does it make it easier to use, but the performance of the hearing aid gets better because the battery performance is more powerful and more consistent. Here on the left here, we've got what would be more of a traditional behind-the-ear hearing aid. A lot of people, when they think about hearing aids, that's the first thing that they think about. The big beige piece behind the ear with the giant tube and the large ear mold. These still exist, but they're only fit in the vast minority of cases. Most hearing instruments have transitioned to this sort of design, to the point where when you put it on the ear, people may not even ask if you're wearing anything because they don't even see it. They don't know that you're wearing something on the ear. And I think we're making more and more progression in this area and reducing the stigma of using hearing instruments. Everybody's got earbuds, AirPods, some gadget on their ear these days. And so I think that it's helped people to adopt this idea of wearing something on the ear, even if it is a medical device like a hearing aid. Okay. The other thing that we've seen a lot of progression with is the hearing aids being able to connect directly with devices. And the biggest one is the smartphone. So we've gotten to the point where depending on what kind of hearing instrument you have, the phone can stream the information, the sound, the music, the phone call directly into the hearing instruments if your hearing aid has a Bluetooth receiver or a Bluetooth antenna. But if we move beyond that, just controlling the hearing aid, you're able to do it on the phone now. So it used to be that you had to take the hearing aid out, you're adjusting a button on it, you're pressing a dial, or you're even using a remote control. We've sort of transitioned away from that now, where most people can take their phone out and start adjusting what their hearing aid is doing on the fly. Even being able to take the sound directly from the TV and have it sent into the hearing instruments has been more of a feature that's widely available on a lot of the hearing instruments that we're fitting. I'll move into clarity and comfort. It's actually quite remarkable that hearing aids are the size of, like my fingernail here, and that they're talking to each other the whole time. And so when we fit hearing instruments as a pair, they actually communicate with one another now. And so if there's background noise on one side, the hearing instruments can actually send a signal over to the other and say, hey, there's some noise here. Let's actually pivot over to a different direction. And by doing that, reduce some of that noise that we're picking up with. And so they're in constant communication with one another. And instead of working independently, they're working as a team. And they're constantly streaming information back and forth. When you even make an adjustment with one hearing instrument, it instantly sends that signal over to the other side. And so you're not fiddling around with your hearing instruments separately. So we talk about hearing aid computer chips these days. We're at the point now where most of the hearing instruments that you'll see make about 1,000 automatic adjustments to the sound every second. Okay? And as you're walking through an environment, in milliseconds, the hearing instrument is able to tell what sort of environment you're in, who's talking, is that person likely to be talking to you or are they talking to somebody else? The programming that's in these hearing instruments and the way that they react to the environment is just so much more sophisticated than where they were before. In a matter of milliseconds, This is what the hearing instruments might be doing. You walk into a room and it's identifying the type of environment you're in based upon the sound, based upon the noise, based upon the speech, based upon the acoustics. It can identify what's a voice, what's background noise. It can adjust the behavior of the microphones. It can adjust the volume that it's giving you on the fly to match up with your pattern of hearing loss. If there's any whistling that comes out from the hearing aid that starts to get back into the microphone, it's instantly canceling that out in midair in real time. It's applying noise reduction or artificial speech enhancement. And then for hearing instruments that use artificial intelligence, it's then sending that sound to a different computer chip within the hearing instrument and having that sound further filtered down. And this happens in milliseconds on the fly. You don't get any lip synchronization delays like a badly dubbed movie. When people are talking, you're almost hearing the sound instantly. You have no idea that the hearing instrument is making all of these adjustments in real time. AI, I think, is going to be a part of the future of not just hearing instruments, but really how we function as a society. And so we're still in the early stages of how we're using AI into hearing instruments. But certain hearing aids now have computer chips within them that are dedicated for artificial intelligence tasks. For some of the other manufacturers, the apps that are in your phone can make adjustments to your hearing instruments on the fly based upon what you're hearing and the feedback that you're giving to the app. You're actually talking to the app and saying, this sounds a little bit sharp and tinny right now. And the app's like, okay, I'm going to make a few adjustments. Does that sound better? No, I think I still need it more. And it's almost like you're guiding the kind of adjustments that you want done by yourself through the app. So we're going to see more and more of this technology come through as we move forward here. Finally, what's next? To be honest, I don't know. But I think it's more of what we're already seeing. There's going to be more artificial intelligence. The chips are going to get continuously faster. They're going to get smaller and smaller. The hearing instruments are going to get more discrete. We're going to move away from potentially even anything that's visible in the ear. And so we can imagine one day things get shrunken to the point where it's just a tiny device that might be implanted or just sits into your ear and that you can't see it visibly on the body. You can imagine before in the past, we didn't have this technology, trying to experiment and move the industry in a certain direction was just so expensive, and now change just happens so quickly. And so I'm excited to see what's happening out there in the industry, but if you see a lot of what's happening with computers, smartphones, you can understand that a lot of it will trickle down into what we're using right now with hearing instruments. Hearing instruments at this point can have motion sensors in them. If somebody falls, it can actually pick up that somebody's fallen and send an alert to the phone and contact an emergency contact. That's the point that we're at right now. It can monitor things like your heart rate, your footsteps. And so all of this integration is going to become more and more widely available with hearing instruments. They're talking about making real-time translation with hearing instruments. Imagine you're talking to somebody who speaks Spanish. You have no idea how to speak Spanish, but your hearing instrument is picking up the Spanish and translating it instantly into your ear. Why not? Or it could pick up what the person is saying and repeat it back to you instantly in an even louder level through an AI agent. Like, the sky's the limit at this point, and we're going to start seeing more and more of these technologies come into play. I think the future looks really bright for hearing instruments. And the last thing I will see is that the number of people treating their hearing loss is going up like this. You can imagine when we go from the ear horn to where we are right now, people are consistently getting their hearing tested and treating their hearing loss at rates that we've never seen before. I think it has a large part in how we've advanced the technology and made the quality of life with hearing instruments so much better.